All right, so let's do the next part. So you define a roadmap. These are your steps to achieve your security objectives, and it's a series of tasks and projects. And you have people with like project manager certification running these projects and such. So there's enterprise architecture to guide you. Now there is business and technical features included. This is a way you just organize your planning for your business. So business functions ensure that all the important business needs are met by the systems, and you have a model mapping the business systems onto the IT environment. And this is just a way to make sure that you consider all the issues that you have to consider. So information security architecture is a subset of this, and that's trying to protect the components and considering special components that are there to provide preventive or detective security functions, like firewalls, password policies, locked doors, security cameras, this sort of thing. So the enterprise architecture is not specifically aimed at security. It makes sure that you have all the hardware and software to fulfill the purposes. They work together, there's consistency, you use resources efficiently, and you can upgrade and change it as needed. And this is, like I say, not specific to security. This is just organizing your business so you efficiently accomplish your business goals. And then you got your information security architecture. So you have a policy which specifies general overarching ideas like we should have a centralized authentication and how we're going to do web filtering. And then you have standards which specify exactly what products you will use, a certain vendor of firewall or antivirus or something, certain standards of network protocols and so on, hardening standards. All right. And my mouse is freezing up on me again. All right. Anyway, so all right, centralized functions are a big issue. This is why people use Microsoft Windows servers for domain controllers. If you have a Microsoft network of less than 10 computers, one thing Microsoft says is you can run it as a work group. And that would mean you just have separate machines, and each one of them is independent. So if you want to upgrade software, you have to carry a CD from machine to machine to upgrade it. And if a new employee comes to work, you have to create an account on those machines one by one. And this is for the birds. For any large network, you have to have a central point of administration, which is the domain controller. And the same thing applies to encryption and password policy and everything else. You really want centralized functions, where there is one place where you can control everything. And then, once you've centralized function, you can have one administrator over that centralized server who is in fact controlling thousands of devices or workers or many business locations, all from one point. So for centralized authentication, you typically use Microsoft Active Directory. This is why everybody uses Windows servers. And then for centralized monitoring of security, you use a security information event manager system like Splunk and forward all your logs to one place so you can search them in one place. And then you got device management. From the central place, you now have a place to configure and control your servers and mobile devices and everything else. So here's some enterprise architecture frameworks, the Open Group and Zochman. These are, again, not particularly specific to security, therefore just business. So the Open Group architecture is just a framework for designing, planning, implementing, and governing your technology at a high level. And so you got various phases. The preliminary phase where you set up, then you define a vision of the architecture and the business and the information systems and the technology. Then you consider opportunities and solutions, and you have planning and governance and management of how you're going to set things up, how you're going to migrate from one generation of equipment to another or from one location to another, and then how you're going to change things as needed as you move ahead, how you're going to plan the changes and make sure you're still meeting all the necessary requirements. So they've got a little diagram here of how it works. You start with preliminary setup, then you have all these parts of the business being considered, and each one of them leading to your requirements management here. So You decide that you need to change something, so that changes your requirements. We've added like a new location, so the new location must have certain communication with the others and such. And this is just a way, like I say, it's just a way of organizing your thinking so you can make a plan and hopefully not overlook something important. Then the Zochman Framework's been around for decades and is still dominant, and it models your IT business like the construction of an office building. And looks like this. You've got data, you got functional applications, you got networks, people, time, and strategy. And for each of those things you have a scope, which is the area that it's covered. Then you have a model, systems model, technology, detailed representation, and then function for the enterprise. Just another way to lay out all the little things you must consider and try to make sure you've given appropriate attention to all these aspects of your business. Notice that security is not anywhere here. This is just talking about accomplishing the business and using your resources efficiently. So a security architecture would be policy and governance, deciding major aspects of your business, like what servers you're going to use, what kind of network you're going to have. And at the detailed level, things like configuration and change management. So if you decide that your DNS servers are not powerful enough to meet the needs, then you might want to increase the number of servers, and this would require you to update your devices so they have more DNS server addresses on them or something. This sort of thing. So you might move to software-defined networking. This is all the rage since more and more of your devices are virtual. You have virtual local area networks, you have virtual servers, then you have virtual routers, and you got software-defined networking, virtual networking really. Another big thing these days is serverless computing, where you do not have a function tied to one machine or even one virtual machine. It's just running in software. You can do this on Cloudflare, you can do it in Azure, you can do it in Amazon. You can just have a piece of software that runs on the cloud service, and you don't even know or care which machine it's running on. It just takes input and calculates the output, and you don't need to know what it's running on. All right, so to manage your program, we're going to talk about security governance here, and these other topics are going to be in later weeks. All right, so governance is the activities that find and treat risks and establish roles and responsibilities and measure the processes. This is the process of governance. Governance is making sure that your policy is in fact being enacted. So it's measuring to see if things are actually being done that should be being done. That's governance. So your board of directors is at the top of everything. These guys establish the general overarching goals, the risk appetite and risk management. They set up the general nature of the business. And then below that you got these other groups, the Information Steering Committee, the CISO, your audit team, your CIO, management, and other employees. So the steering committee designs a strategy for this, and they specify roles and responsibilities, who's going to be in charge of doing the various things for your security plan. And of course, this should align with the other strategies in the business. As we said before, if your security program is not harmonizing with the business, it will be an impediment and it will not succeed. So the CISO develops the policy, conducts risk assessments, and develops the processes for the activities that have to happen here, managing vulnerabilities and incidents, identity and access, security awareness and training, and compliance, measuring to see if you're complying with the regulations that oversee your business. Your audit team is the people that measure to see what is really happening and whether it is what should be happening. So they examine specified processes to make sure that they're operating properly. It might be a compliance audit where you're trying to make sure you meet a specified set of rules like SOC or the credit card one. Or it might be just to make sure that you're complying with your own stated business policies, but that's what your audit team does. And your CIO is responsible for management of the IT organization, IT strategy, service desk, development and operations. Notice not particularly tied to security, just making sure that the equipment and business functions work correctly. So managers are responsible for the conduct of their employees. They are supposed to be watching people and making sure that they're doing an appropriate job and getting enough training and so on. So all employees, of course, are required to know the policies and adhere to the policies, and that's why they're supposed to have security awareness training, so they know what is expected of them and how they should report things they see that are not right, and so on. So you got to have security governance. Governance is management watching to make sure that things are actually being done correctly. If you do not have governance, then people just ignore the rules and break them, and you let that go on, and then you are not really in control, and you are not really living up to your promises that you've made to achieve compliance and other issues. So, all right, so security governance, you got risk management, you have process improvement. If you have incident response, is governed by the result of this. You will have increased compliance if you have an effective security governance program, and therefore effective ability to recover from disasters. And you'll have a measurement of how effective your program is, so you can tell if it's getting better or worse. You will have a measurement of how accurately you are using resources efficiently, and some idea of how much of your resources are being wasted. So this is why a properly governed program should have rewards for the business. And so these are the results. People should trust you more if you have an effective security governance program, and you should get a reputation for being a serious, well-organized business that people can trust. And as I mentioned before, and there was a question about it, the one thing missing from here is exactly how many dollars per year you made by doing this. All these are sort of vague, hand-wavy things, unfortunately. They should result in making more money because you'll impress people and get bigger contracts and stuff, but you can't easily define exactly how much money I made and brought into the company by implementing these programs. All right, let's take a look at a Kahoot 4A2. Looks like the Twitch is working all right. A little bit better than before. Oh yeah, this is not good. Okay. Getting a few problems, but I think we'll make it. All right. I'm deducing from you showing up in the Kahoot that you can see it. I can't see it on the Twitch stream, but if you people can see it, I think I'll just keep going. Oh, good. 4 people made it. I'll give it a few more seconds to see if more people make it over. All right, I guess that's it. Let's give it a try. And my Twitch is finally moving, but anyway, mine doesn't matter that much. All right. All right, so where do you get specific vendors named? right, those are standards. And the lag is ridiculous, like 30 seconds, so the Kits people aren't seeing this until much after it's over, but anyway, we'll just go with it. All right, which framework comes from the 80s? That's the Zochman Framework. Good. All right. So which one uses multiple independent containers? These are the microservices, what they're talking about here, those serverless things. And you could say virtualization, but the best answer, the thing that performs a task, is microservices. They run in containers. Those are the so-called serverless processes. And who makes sure that the systems are operating properly? That's your auditors. That's what audits are for. You check to see if things are the way they should be. All right. All right. Good. Stop.